But yeah, and then we also have the DUI that just happened.
Alan West. I put in the description. Alan West becomes a Karen. I gotta say, I'm torn on this one because I've met Alan West in the context of I met him at the NRA show. Probably would have been it was either 2018 or 2019. I can't remember now what year it was, but I met him at the NRA show, and he was doing all kinds of interviews, definitely known to be on the conservative side of things. But then his wife is arrested for DUI, and all of a sudden there's like this switch that was flipped, and I get it. I just think he let his emotions take over, but he, in the process, he kind of doubled down on it. He got called out on it for kind of being a Karen about this and becoming the very thing he criticizes. And then he doubled down on it. He had an opportunity to say, yeah, I was emotional. I feel like I overreacted because it was my wife. Obviously, like I was very attached to the situation, but he doubled down on it. He's still pushing for, like, he wants the mayor to come to his house and apologize to his wife. What does the mayor have to do anything to do whatsoever with A, DUI laws in the state of Texas, or B, what the officer decided to do anyway? It's just, I think he went too far. And rather than own that he went too far, and I think people like me would have, if he would have come out and said, hey, listen, I respect these officers. I see that they were just doing their job. Clearly, in the end, it is very clear that she was not intoxicated because the toxicology report did come back. No drugs, no alcohol. But, I'm still upset that she was arrested and that she didn't have that thing in there. But this is our justice system at work. It goes through the process. Now we see that the arrest was not necessary or whatever. And
it shows that the process works, right? Like, that's why you have all these fail safes. And for those of you out there who saw the video or have questions about it, I know a lot of people called and reached out to me, but it was a DUI video, and it started with some pretty hellacious driving, right? She was
terrible driving.
Yeah. And she said, I think she said she dropped her phone or something.
No, she said she was listening to the directions on her GPS.
Oh, on her GPS, on her navigation.
It's like, but I don't think her GPS was telling her to literally drive on the shoulder of the expressway.
Yeah. And so in her defense, right? Like, but this is also hindsight. So you're a police officer, you're behind a vehicle. You don't know who the driver of that vehicle is, right?
Correct.
You don't know that she's looking at a navigation system. Now, once we did find out that she's just an old kind of, like, almost reminds me of my mother, like, doesn't do technology. She's kind of like me. She doesn't like highways. She doesn't like driving at night, period. And so now you would she get put in an instance where she got stuck in traffic. It got dark outside. She's lost. She hates being on the interstate. She can't figure out what exits, because let's face it, these roads out there, they can get kind of crazy and loopy, especially in Texas, man. Like Dallas, I don't know how anybody drives around Dallas, or LA, forget about it. So I could see from her perspective driving like shit. But if you're a cop behind her, all you see is somebody who's driving poorly. So then you decide to investigate. There's indicators, right? The ping ponging within the lane. Like, let's say she was looking down at her navigation system, and that calls her to drive right of the line there. And then she comes all the way back, slams into the left line, and ping pongs back with herky-jerky movements. These are all indicators that something is going on. Something. And I would argue that even looking at a navigation system is not an impairment, but it is, you're distracted. You're a distracted driver. And
well,
it's not
then
safe. We just talked about Trooper Devlin. We talked about Trooper Devlin. I mean, this is how he died, from somebody doing very similar things. So the cop decides to pull her over. She's a female, a police officer. She pulls the lady over. And this is where things go wrong. Everybody's like, she's just an old lady. She's just a sweet old lady. But we also hear this in the case that we're about to break down, Rayshard Brooks, where you're going to hear the DA call him just a sweet black man who's trying to get on the right path. So it's like, we always
jovial. He's a jovial old fellow.
It doesn't matter, but we all preach about how it shouldn't matter and we should all be treated the same, except in almost every single police instance, you hear about what kind of character these people have that have been pulled over. When in a cop's brain, it does not matter. It's very black and white. There's no racism about it. This is an older, I mean, she was white, right? Or Hispanic, but she looks pretty white to me on the camera.
I don't know. I can hear her voice. I didn't see her.
But either way.
Oh, you're talking about Alan West's wife?
Yeah.
I think she's a black female.
Is she a black female?
I don't know.
She's really light skinned.
Whatever.
It doesn't really matter. But what it didn't matter if she's old or young or black and white. This cop saw an infraction. He saw something wrong, or she saw something wrong. And so she decided to pull the vehicle over, and then she went to investigate. Now she does the nystagmus test, and she does it correctly. And if you really want to dive into a standardized field sobriety test, she was given a standard. This isn't like, say, the alphabet from Z backwards. No, this is the standard that federally has been kind of like adopted federally across America of what a DUI should look like. That's why they call it a standardized field sobriety test. So this is what the courts have said. This is reasonable, and anybody with any amount of common sense can perform this test. And so she goes through the eye test. We can't see the eye nystagmus if there was any. I'm guessing there's not any because there was nothing on the toxicology report. But the officer then went to the walk and turn test, and it's very simple instructions. You must walk and you must strike heel to toe. She missed that. She was told, repeatedly, hey, your heel has to hit the toe. She was shown how to do it by the officer. She was given instructions twice on how to do it, and she just failed to do it. I would also argue that my mom would probably be not comfortable with police being pulled over, and it's stressful, that she just wasn't paying attention, but that's okay. So she feels we're going to give her another easier test, which is the one leg stand. It's put your leg out, point your toe out in front of you, keep your hands at your side at all time, look forward and count out loud. Very simple instructions that were broken down Big Bird or Cookie Monster style. And she still failed that test by waving her arms up and down, not looking forward, not counting correctly. And so now you've got 4 things that have happened so far that have indicated to the cop that something is going on.
Even when she stopped when she got pulled over, people, I don't know if you guys know this, she stopped in the middle lane of the expressway, like the middle lane. And then she was given instructions to pull over to the side of the road, and all she did was pull over to the right lane, and then had to be given instructions again to get over to the side of the road. So every piece of this, from the observation of the driving to how she stops, how she follows directions, all of this is a piece of probable cause for, as an officer, do I believe that there is probable cause that this person is operating this vehicle under the influence of alcohol or drugs?
And probable cause mean more probably than not. More probably. It's not saying that she is factually drunk, right? A police officer is based on, it's more likely that there's something wrong with her than there's not. And I believe, so I didn't give a lot of DUIs because of the amount of paperwork and just how unfair DWI paperwork works. I think it's a very hypocritical movement that we have going on here. You got on one side, DUI is like the worst thing that you could ever do driving, and it kills people, and there's a lot of things that we see. But then on the court side, they pretty much make it that if a cop gives a DUI, the cop's a piece of shit. And if you misspell a name wrong on all 12 or 13 pieces of paper, the case gets thrown out. If you use the west instead of east, the case gets thrown out. I mean,
every detail is scrutinized.
You can process a homicide in about 30 minutes to an hour, but you cannot process a DUI in less than 4 hours. So on one spectrum, it's a very hard thing to do. And there are people who are really good at it and they go to school for it. And so this female here looks like she has had some formal training because she did a better job than I would have done. And then she, decided to make an arrest. There was nothing, there was nobody thrown on the ground. She was treated with respect. And then there was a blood test. And now I don't know this for a fact. Oh, and then we had the refusal to breathe correctly, right? She was like, it's a one continuous breath, like you're blowing up a balloon.
Yeah.
And so DWI, again, like I said earlier, is one of these weird things because as a cop, you're going to work death by motor vehicle accidents. And a lot of times people are going to be impaired. And we've seen some really bad ones. I mean, I saw a nurse who was impaired at about 7 o'clock in the morning.
Mm.
drift left of center, hit a car head on, and killed a 21-year-old on his way
Oh my
to
gosh.
school, to college. So, she had stopped drinking at like 6 a.m. and it was a crazy story because that was the last call I took at night. It was 7 p.m. on my last shift, and I took that call on my way home. And she was upset because her husband had walked out on her and left. And she said he had been drinking all day and he left, and she wanted me to try to find him and give him a DUI. And I didn't. Well, she ended up staying up all night waiting for him to come home. She started drinking around midnight. He never came home. She stopped drinking around 5-ish in the morning, 4-ish in the morning, something like that. She goes to sleep, wakes up at 6:30 and tries to drive to work. Gets her first arrest ever, and it's because she killed a guy.
Oh
So we
man.
see the effects of DWI, and then we have the Mothers Against Drunk Driving. And anytime there's uh, a drunk driver that kills somebody, the community goes nuts.
Mm-hmm.
What are the police doing to stop drunken drivers? What are we doing at these bars? What are we doing? And so the pressure that a police officer feels every time somebody dies, even if the cop wasn't there, he still feels that pressure from the community because there's always these board meetings. The Facebooks blow up with the moms groups and the dads against drunk driving, all these groups, they all get involved. And so there's this immense pressure from the chief that we have to do more DWI stops. And, I got in trouble because I was only doing one DWI a year, but they're not allowed to give you quotas. So they were like, look, we're not allowed to tell you to give more DUIs, but damn, dude, like literally you can't find more than one a year. Do you need to go get some retraining? Because there's more chances that you're behind drunk drivers. And I pulled over a lot of drunk drivers. I just happened to do the throw your keys in the woods method or let you drive off method. So, I mean, let somebody come pick you up method and never drive off. But I didn't like giving DUI. So I would give like maybe one a year. And that was just because of a wreck. So with all this pressure to give somebody a DWI, the minute you give them a DWI, though, every single person fights that DWI like it's a murder trial. And so you've got these lawyers that come down on you. You got the parents that come down on you. We're like, she's a college student and she's never been in trouble in her life. And you're going to ruin her life by giving you a DWI. Well, yes, I am, because she chose to drink too much
Mm-hmm.
and drive. And that is the law. It's a simple rule. And we're going to see in this Rayshard Brooks, which was a drinking and driving related incident, you're going to hear what the mayor has to say on what her opinion is in this instance about DWI, which is very consistent with what they believe in this one. So we need to come together and say, okay, are we going to squash the seriousness of DWI? Are we going to put that on the back burner? Or is it every time we don't give a DWI and somebody dies, it's our fault, but every time somebody gets a DWI and doesn't die, we're ruining their life?
Well,
There's got to be some kind of balance.
imagine the outrage. Let's take it the fact that it was a notable politician's wife out of the equation. If that was anybody, right? Let's say that maybe it wasn't alcohol and there was some unknown narcotic that she had ingested, even if it was prescribed to her. And I've arrested people in the past because their driving was so atrocious. They failed all the field sobrieties, and you end up locking them up because you believe that you have probable cause of DUI. Maybe they refuse the data master, or there is no signs of alcohol, no odor of alcohol. There's not other indicators that it was alcohol. Maybe the nystagmus wasn't there. So you're like, man, I think this is narcotics. So you get a blood draw. And then all of a sudden, what comes back is like, hey, it was this prescribed medicine that they had in their system. So they didn't mean to be that way, but nevertheless, it impaired their driving. But what happens if you stop somebody? And I want you guys to seriously think about this and take the politician's side out of it, the person that got pulled over in this case, and say, if that person would have been like, well, I'm just going to let you go. I guess even though you failed all these indicators, you seem like a nice lady. So goodbye. And then she keeps driving out of her lane and hits somebody and kills them. Maybe she hits a car with kids in it and it flips the car and kids die. Now, what do you think is going to happen to that officer when they review her body cam and they're like, why in the world didn't you lock this lady up? She couldn't drive. She failed everything. Like, what are you thinking? And now she caused the death because you let her go. So cops are under that kind of pressure when they're encountering people who are driving this way. What do you,
you have to live
doing?
with it yourself as a cop. I mean,
Yeah.
you have to be able to like look inside of yourself and say, am I willing to let this person go right now? Because if they kill somebody, then I'm gonna have to live with that shit the rest of my life.
Yep.
So, there's this way to say, I don't think the cop did anything wrong. If we want to play the Monday morning quarterback thing, which I hate to do, I am the kind of guy that's like tries to figure out how to get you out of going to jail for DUI. But that's because I'm lazy and I don't like to do hordes of paperwork. It doesn't make me a good cop. That's why I say I'm a mediocre at best police officer. But I think in the instance, that woman shouldn't have been on the road at night. I don't care if she was drinking. I don't care if she's too stupid to drive at night. Right. And I don't say that. I say it frankly, because it's just frankly what it is. She sucks at driving at night. Yeah. Boom, period. She didn't need to be on the road with those kids in the car. I'm not letting my mom take my kids at night on a highway with my children in the car without like giving her Big Bird to Cookie Monster instructions, because I know how shitty of a driver my mom is.
I have friends who won't let their kids go in the car with like their step grandfather or whatever, however it goes, because he literally at night is blind as a bat, but he still goes out and drives, and he should not be driving. So he can't go out there. So like there's all sorts of reasons people may be bad drivers. And I've pulled people over for that before. And in Michigan, you can actually petition the state as an officer. There's a form you can fill out to basically make them take a driver's test and have to actually prove they have the ability to still actually drive without killing someone. So there's all sorts of different, avenues out there to deal with this stuff. But my thing is, like, when it first happened, Alan West is normally the kind of person who would defend the police and say, hey, let's wait for all the facts to come out. But instead, he immediately, as soon as he got his wife bailed out, immediately takes to social media and throws the cops under the bus and says he demands an apology from them, demands that they be fired, wants the mayor to come over and apologize to his wife in person, the chief of police to do it. He went full HOA Karen and did the exact opposite of what he normally would say we should do, which is wait for the facts. And then the body cam footage comes out. He doubles down, and it kind of came off as like, she's just a grandma. Now the cops are out here where there's real crime going on, and they're just spending their time arresting grandmas. It's like, that's not what happened. I mean, no. Grandma is irrelevant. Your familial status is irrelevant to your driving. So it's not like, oh, it's a grandma driving out of her lane all over the expressway. Have fun, Granny. You go out there and do you. I know you got kids in the car. Just you do you. And he's like, oh, and then the terrify the kids and all that stuff. Listen, that officer could have turned those kids over to Child Protective Services in the course of her duty. She didn't.
They didn't. She did not.
Didn't.
So
that officer was nothing but professional. So I hope that Mr. West, please, I know that you're a faithful, loyal listener to the show. Please walk this back and just own it, man. Just own that you turned into a Karen for a moment and say, I apologize. And go back to being normal. Okay.
Instead of our shirts that we made with what would LeBron James do, or LeBron James, never heard of her. Maybe it should be like
never heard of her.
Maybe we should be asking Adam West what we should do on the next DUI. But I mean, it's just another example of a shitty politician, and that's what these people are. And we keep. I don't know who keeps selecting these politicians for us, but we need to start going out and like literally, if there's somebody on a ballot, we need to just start not voting for
money keeps selecting them,
because
for us.
All of these politicians, they're children. Like, this is the guy you want making decisions for you, is the guy that emotionally gets out on social media and all these politicians are doing it right now. Like, it is absolutely absurd. It's ridiculous.
That social media is so hot right now.
To go.